I hope what I've got to say is also on behalf of our various competitors in the rammed earth industry here in Australia. There's a few of you here. I'm just putting that in case you think it's all earth structures. It's not. This is, I think what I've got to say might reflect what we all feel is important in our small industry. I want to talk about two things. One's the whole Charles Sturt Uni experience that we're all here enjoying, and Marcy's outlined all the benefits of the design concept. I'm just going to talk about the building and actually the physical building of it, because that's what we do, and the people involved and the struggles and that sort of thing, and how much this enterprise here building these walls really pushed us along in the early days. And I want to then, after that, talk about a little bit about sustainable design for the architects that are here. I know there's a few of you, and always for a little subcontractor like ourselves to have an opportunity to put a bit of kick in the slats under you architects. It's good. So no, it's not like that really. Now, the normal sequence of designing and building a university campus of this size, and it's a significant campus, would be for the university to appoint an architect by way of a competition. Is that right? You know, they put out to various architects to design what they think would be ideal, or for the uni just to appoint an architect by way of their reputation and form known to the university board. You know, they say, oh, that Swanee Draper Design Company or Troppo, they're great for this sort of thing, whatever. But in this event, and then what would normally happen, the successful architect then presents the university with design concepts, and the whole process of refining the size and the shape and the performance and the cost of the buildings is whittled away and changed and defined, and it rolls along until a tender process takes place with various builders known to the uni. The builders then, the successful builder, sources appropriate subbies, or they do that in their estimating process, and they nail down a lump sum offer, and they hope like hell that their estimates are accurate, and they get appointed, and they might make some money and enjoy the whole process as well. Then the contracts are signed, and off we go. You all know this. I'm just saying this how different this campus was, and because rammed earth is such a tiny and it's a little known industry. I mean, we all think it's huge, but it's tiny. Commercial scale estimators can be really nervous about our product. The process of submitting our price is often they'll ring us up and say, "Oh, geez, Rick, do you mind driving to Adelaide tomorrow and have a chat to us, to our estimators, about how we're going to build this?" And they want to know, they want to pore over the construction sequencing, the safety aspects, access issues and timing. And unlike a bricklaying company who simply put in a unit price for laying and it's, you know, so many buildings are brick or block work, estimators understand that stuff, they do it all the time, but rammed earth is something completely new for them. Now back to our situation here at the university, normally with our commercial projects, which we do a lot of, and Ollie Petrovic here's done a lot, I know, over the years with his business. Back to our situation as small operators in these big commercial sites around Australia. It is a really, it's a real circus, you know, it really is. Australia, we work all over the world at the moment. Australia takes the cake for tricky, difficult building sites, commercial building sites. I hope this isn't being recorded because I'll never get another job in Australia. You've all heard about the CFMEU. When you front up to these jobs, you're introduced to the shop steward in his lovely little office there somewhere. He's normally overweight, he's smoking, he's got a fridge full of pies and VBs, he's foul-mouthed, and he really sincerely believes that workers and bosses just live on different planets, and they don't get us small country teams. They just don't get it, and it can be very, very. And Ollie would back me up here. I think they can be very are damaging to the culture of a small company. Then you've got the WorkSafe guys who rock up in their brand new Commodores and they discover unimaginably dangerous things that you're doing, like, leaving a hammer lying in a corner, and that hammer is going to trip someone up and kill them. Well, there's a 78.6 chance of that happening because we've done the research of a death, and therefore we're going to fine you. And project managers, generally nice young fellas, they start out nice young fellas. They're so under the pump from their bosses down in Collins Street or George Street in Sydney that they're just transformed into unreasonable, badly mannered monsters, that are in need of a really good spank. And it goes on. Now, I think it's because in Australia, we commercial buildings work under such low margins with high volume builders that in our current economic cycle, the relationship between big builders and little subbies, especially small insignificant ones like us, who they probably consider we're never going to do another rammed earth job, it can be fraught. Not always, we've had some good times, but generally it's pretty tough. So, we get a phone call from an architect working in Wagga. She's got an odd accent, Hello, I can't do your accent, Marcy. So I drive up to Wagga and she's working in this funny old ag department building. I think it was there. And I knew it because I'm from Wagga and we used to ferret underneath we had ferrets and we used to get rabbits under a building. So I said to her, Marcy, which architect firm are you working for? We might know them. And she said, no, I'm working for the university. So I said, is the university designing its own campus? And she said, yes. And I asked her who are the building companies she might be tendering with, the main head contractors, and she said, no, the university's building the university. And I said, is that like, my dad went to Cambridge, and Cambridge and Oxford have got their own printing businesses. You heard of Oxford University Press? And I think it's a way for the university to make a bit of money. They do publishing. And I said, is it like Oxford Uni Press publishing books and then selling and making some money on the side? And she said, yes, sort of, but not really, Well, I thought this was sort of cool. It's really cool. We've got carpenters, site foremen, project managers who are paid by Charles Sturt Uni to build Charles Sturt Uni. And it's a good idea. And I think that the margins that a commercial builder would apply to a building like this, they might be working on 10, 15%. That's all diminished. And the uni, if it's not as brutally efficient with its construction management, might save some money. I thought that was really cool. And I thought this is going to be nice. Well, it was. And I wish there's more of it. Here's some reasons. Now, Marcy, I'm going to talk about Marcy. So we front up to Wagga. Marcy Webster Manison's on a mission to design a truly sustainable group of buildings like nothing else before. I mean, the structures she was talking about, I thought, there's a lot of rammed earth, this is good, But she knew more about rammed earth than we did. She'd done so much research. Her office was a mess. She's like an army general. She's just racing around. She's got all these other staff. They're shouting at each other, and it was extraordinary, the energy and the passion. I've never seen an architect office like it. And it was all spread out everywhere, butcher's paper, texters. She's got people like myself there. She's got Sparky. She's got thermal people. And it was extraordinary, the energy. And bit by bit, this design, and it was under a timeline. I remember we had to do things very quickly. She had a very firm budget and little time to build it all. And she asked us in, and I love that about architects. If they bothered to ring up and say, look, we need some help to design this, and we'll jump in the ute and go down at a moment's notice, A, because we might get the job, but B, it just saves so much hassle. If we come on site and the architect has designed something that's just not appropriate to be buildable, well, obviously it's going to cost a lot more money, and it's not fair on the client. So this was an exceptional case where Marcy made the time to get with us and help design it. She wanted some really weird stuff, like niches in the walls, And I said, Marcy, it's going to look like a Catholic nunnery, you know, little Jesuses. She said, no, stick with it. Because I don't like those niches. I think they're a bit... Well, there's a niche market for it, but... Anyway, I reckon they're charming. I had a wander around this morning. They actually work. They're really nice. That's the only pun. She was happy with the pinky colour and texture of the material, which is lucky because it was the only stuff we could get in the district. That's the pinky one, not this one. We didn't build this building, by the way. The initial building's over there. It was a really nice material from Bona, which is just about 4 k's that way, Bowna, just over here. And it was a new quarry, and we blended it with some sand, I believe, to get the PI, the plastic index, down. We used it was actually about 6% cement, but it was such that we were getting between 8 to 12 megapascal resistance, which we needed for the resistance for the huge roof loads. There's no way, I'm sorry all you anti-cement people here, but there's no way we'd build these walls without any cement. It just wouldn't work. The real hitch for us, though, was the second floor. Building first floor up to 3 or 2.7 walls is really easy for us, and it's a delight. But to get up to the second floor, and remember this was 15 years ago or more, was it? I can't remember. 20 years ago, we had no idea how to get... We just didn't have the budget for elevators and all that hoo-ha that Americans use, you know, for getting all their incredible equipment and money. And so we thought, how are we going to get up to the second floor to build the interior? We could build the external walls, but the internal stuff. Someone had a really good idea. I think it might have been Marcy. That we'd put a row of bricks. Have you seen those fired bricks that go around the perimeter of the top of the ground floor walls? Use those as a sacrificial form and then cast the slab up to that. So there's our 300mm walls, there's the little bricklet, and the concrete came in that sat on top of our wall here, but the top of the slab was flush with the top of the bricks. It was all screeded off beautifully, really good concrete company. How are we going to get up there, you know, to deliver all our material and dirt and machinery? So someone had the idea, what about a dirty great ramp, you know? You know what a ramp is? Just drive the bobcats from down here up to there. So we thought, really? It worked. It was really good. I went to my steel fabricator in Mansfield and we worked how to design this thing. It wasn't certified, I'm pretty sure, but anyway. It was so massive. It was 3 metres high and about, I'd forgotten how long, 12 metres long. We found someone with a low loader, and even with a low loader, we built it and it was on wheels, and we dragged this thing. It was a horrendous operation, nearly tipping over. Got it on the low loader, and we had to come up at night because it was too high for the cops to sue the truck driver. It was unbelievable. And anyway, do you remember this, Marcy? We unloaded this bloody ramp and backed it up to the thick edge of the wedge up to the building, put blocks of styrofoam so it wouldn't hit the walls, pegged it down, and then we'd built in these big outriggers that came out to the side so it wouldn't tip over, and we pegged those down with star pickets, and it was pretty good. We went on to use that loader for 4 more jobs. And I remember there was one, we were building a school called Lauriston in Melbourne, and we had the bobcats had come screaming down this loader, and right at the bottom there was a girls' school, and there were classrooms, and the girls would just seeing these bobcats running around. Anyway, we used it quite a few times until WorkSafe got wind of it and canned it. And it was put in the bin, along with half of our little inventions over the years now on the scrap heap. Now, it was a great bit of gear, and that's how we got upstairs, anyway, to build all the upstairs walls. I've got so much to say, but I haven't got time. The next best thing about this building for us was Andre van Egmond. Do any of you know Andre? Marcy alluded to this project manager. Now, when we arrived with all this stuff, this dude, Andre, he's only a small guy, he came out and he was like he's the sort of nearest thing to a Buddhist that I know. He was sort of small and really clever carpenter, and he was Dutch. He had this very exotic name, Van Egmond. His parents came out and they settled at Albury in the 1950s. Andre must have been 50 then, I suppose, and he was so calm. He was like, project managers, well, yeah, you go over here. This guy was, what's that bloody ramp, mate, So, and what's this? Is this all your gear? Right, let's get going. He was such a calm, gentle soul that, in a way, all of us, we're all country boys, you know, there's about 20 of us here, but he just made you want to do the right thing. Normally on a big commercial building site, you go back to your horrible little smoko shed and you're just bitching about the management and everyone's at each other. And this guy, he had two big oversized sort of straw sofas outside his office and a little coffee machine and a nice little Zen-like coffee table and bits of cake his wife had make and bring in. He said, mate, if you've got any problems, you just come here, you know. And he's sitting there, he's looking at you, doing what you're doing. And we would come and talk to him. Now that building, those first ones went through so well. I can't tell you, it was just unreal. I say that because it's just Australia. Our commercial building environment needs a really good kick in the slats. Now, there's some other really good people. A guy called Mark Orton, you remember him, Marty? He was so onto all these organic products. He was a real sort of hippie, but he looked like a VFL player, huge tall bloke with big hands. And he loved all the organic paints and the organic screws and the organic nails and everything else. He was right into recycled timber. We've stayed good friends. So that's enough about that. The administrative side, I take my invoice over to the office, the Charles Sturt Uni office. They pay it 30 days, no problems. None of this holding out for retentions for years and hassling you and trying to knock your price down. It was brilliant. In fact, I put in one bill once which was exactly half of what it should have been, and they rang me up and said, mate, you only put in for 50%. I thought, thank you. That never happens normally. Now, a quick opportunity to talk about aspects of rammed earth design, specifically in relation to sustainability. Because I think there's a lot of design going on at the moment, especially not so much in Australia, but places like Dubai and France and England that we're working on, which it's sad because we seem to be getting trumped by bigger American companies that use a very, very unsustainable methods, but they're clever because they don't have these form lines. See the form lines? We've got horizontal form lines. I just want to tell you, out of interest, Australian rammed earth uses manufactured formwork systems. It was designed ostensibly by some West Australian guys, including Steve Dobson here. It's an amazing system. It's all stackable. The formwork is reused many hundreds of times, hundreds of buildings. We've got some forms that I bought originally from West Australia. They're 35 years old, and they still make beautiful walls. We're now changing our systems to lighter weight formwork, but it's stood our industry in good stead for a long time. Americans cannot stand the form lines. See these form lines? You can see them here. They just don't like them. They've been spoilt because Americans have cheap labour. I'm talking about Canada and America. Sorry for you Canadians, I'm going to bag you for a minute. They have very cheap Latino labour. That's $13 an hour or less. Goes down to $3 an hour for the young ones. It's like slavery, and Donald Trump's funny about his wall because if they didn't have Mexicans, a lot of their agriculture and certainly their construction industries would just fail. If you've got a ready source of cheap labour, you don't advance and become efficient. And because they've got this Latino labour, they don't mind sticking these guys inside the formwork. They have quite thick walls. They make the men stand inside the forms. They dump the dirt on top of them and they ram around their feet. Now that's Darwinian. I mean, it's cruel and it's wrong, I think. We have a system where we build using our formwork that is restackable and it's reusable. So it's ergonomic. You're standing here on your formwork, you've got your rammer, you're ramming in a maximum 600 mil lift at a time. You never stand inside the forms. I mean, you just wouldn't do it. You smash your toes up. So, 5 minutes, right? I'll quickly go through. Now, that's one thing that Australians, we're really good at that. You know, the rammed earth walls that we built are surprisingly sustainable because The business model, there's dozens of little rammed earth operators in Australia. It's not, we reuse our forms, we don't throw away mountains and semi-trailer loads of plywood and whalers at the end of the job like they do over there. With the amount of machinery we have a little bobcat, we have one air compressor, and this formwork that we use over and over and over again. You never throw it out, you just reface it every 2,000 square metres and re-epoxy it. It's fantastic. It's so sustainable. And I'm just going to put all this in the context of a building that we have been working on in Dubai. We've actually just lost the contract, but it's called the Dubai Sustainability Expo, which is on in 2020, so they've got to get a crack on. And this is the main pavilion, rammed earth. There's about 8,000 square metres of walls. It's a really good job for us. And we had it designed with Grimshaw, the architect firm, so that the walls were 400 mil thick going up, and it was quite an easy building to build. And our plan was to get a whole lot of Nepali workers. You know, in Dubai they've got these workers that work for nothing, and our plan was, and we've done this in Africa, to get these guys, train them up, set them up in a business, shoehorn them into their own little four-man team business. They end up the job with some formwork, a bobcat and an air compressor, and off they go in the United Arab Emirates and start building rammed earth walls. It was a really sustainable, socially sustainable, environmentally. It was great. But along comes a big Canadian company with these huge, great, and he says, "Oh, we can build you tapering walls, and none of this horrible Australian form lines, get rid of all that." And they've gone with it, despite the fact that this company are so patented and there's nothing they're going to leave behind when they go. The formwork, and I'm sounding like I've got sucking up sour grapes, and I am, so I'll shut up. But I'm really pissed off because it's just nothing sustainable about it at all. And here's it's the title of the building is the Dubai Sustainability Expo Pavilion. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really sad. That's all I want to say, and I just want, on behalf of all the other rammed earth subbies, how fantastic it is when architects and builders ring us up and get us in there early and talk through things, and don't allow, when architects trump sustainability with style. By that I mean, if you add a whole lot of tricky, difficult things in, the price goes up. The beauty of rammed earth and all earth buildings is in its simplicity. For example, we don't do this banded stuff. I should show you some photos. The banded stuff that, see, we've got no colour banding. Have you seen those American walls with colour banding? It looks like a kid's rainbow cake from a 7-year-old party. It's just so, you've got this beautiful material, why go and trump the natural loveliness of it with rainbow cake anyway? That's a big long, looks like Fez, a big long corridor in a building. I love this, see the simple use of the architect here. It's just a big coastal house down at Flinders, and it's a very, very simple way of building with minimal shape. You know, I just love that building, it's gorgeous. Similarly here, a job at Beechworth where the architects just had two very simple sweepy walls rushed through and out the other side. This sort of thing, very simple designs. This is a house we built a couple of years ago at Grimshaw, just south of Sydney, where the architect replicated a shape that was very simple for us to build, and now you can see images of it finished. It's just extraordinary. I mean, it's over the top, for God's sake, you know. Mum and dad and 2 kids and a dog, and they've got 10 bedrooms. But oh, wall capping. I noticed some of the walls that we built originally out here, right out the front, never got capped, and they're eroding. And I think the next guy that's going to speak is going to probably talk about that and argue that cement's not very good. But if it didn't have any cement, there wouldn't be any wall at all. This is precast. This is our very, very first precast building wall. Our local shire asked us to build an information. You know, you drive in, they got those awful information signs. So we built that complete with a footing at the bottom and lifted it up, and that was successful. These are precast walls. These ones here, they're about 3.6 metres high each, and they were lifted up with cranes and dropped in place on lugs along the front there. There's a precast thing is getting lowered in. We do a hell of a lot of precast, especially in Europe. Now, I just wanted to show you the difference. Curving walls, we've gone off curving walls because curving walls need bespoke forms. They tend to have this sort of ripple effect. You see, it's a lovely building. This is Tarrawarra Art Museum. They do have that, see that sort of ripply bit? Because the curving forms by nature they're not as strong as straight forms. But this is a building we built at Torquay a couple of years ago. And those walls are straight panels, we call them facet panels. And the architects, Wood Marsh, a very respected architect firm, said, yeah, that'll work. And they've gone on, and here's some more facet walls that end up, I quite like the battleship, straight elements all sort of finally creating a curve. That's the same building getting finished. And there we are, see that, look, I call that a curving wall. It's not really, but it's... this machine, I just want to share, here's another thing ended up in the scrap heap. This is a scissor lift, and we designed a tipper that went on top to save our backs, and we got away with it for about 6 weeks, and then WorkSafe turned up. That's building steel portal frame cladding. Once again, it's an extravagant way to deal with it just turns what can be a load-bearing system into a cladding of a steel portal frame, but it works. And now I've just got perfect commercial design for us. For all you architects there, this is a job we just finished in the UK. It's a big Jewish cemetery, a mortuary and prayer halls. The architect there just sat down with us and he said, right, fellas, how can we do this to this budget? So we told him, and he changed the whole design for us specifically, and it just won the most prestigious award in England. And just simple things like rammed earth mob there, you can see we just built a big steel box with a dirty grey lintel at the top, and we just built that's it, finished. It's not the best rammed earth in the world. We had all... here's another really good, perfect commercial design. Marcy, thank you. That works so well. There's that band of bricks that we use as a sacrificial form for the second floor. How's that for a job, eh? That's for easy to build and looks just fantastic. That's a very simple olive processing business in Sunbury. Oh, and I just want to show you our work we're doing overseas, because that's where we're going now. We're just finding it's just fun working overseas. So these guys, Mohammed here, he's Earth Structures Africa, and he's on a roll. Peter and Rory. So we take Australians over these jobs, but we also employ as many locals as we can. This is in South Korea. South Korea's business is going well. There's Jun here, he always says, look at your hair, you're going grey and bald. And I said, well, look at your teeth, mate. But he's a really nice fellow. He's having a really good crack building apartments. This is a couple of weeks ago in Cambodia, having lunch. All the dirt in Cambodia on our jobs there gets delivered in bags. Can you imagine, like shopping bags up to super bags, and it's all tipped out in the ground. And incredibly hard work. That's our Cambodian team. We're building a hotel in Phnom Penh. And there, Mr. Veng lost all his family of the Khmer Rouge, and he's 65. Look how young he looks. But he's our fellow over there. He's going to build a string of rammed earth coffee shops in Siem Reap, starting in a few months. Oh, it's all over. Thank you. I've gone over my time.